Hey everyone, welcome back to the program. Dr. Dan here, and today's topic is based around a question that I get asked a lot, and big in part is because a lot of my patients are female. And so that question is based around menopause, and in particular, why do females gain weight during menopause? What the hell is going on there? We are already going through all of these other life changes, hormonal changes, that sort of thing, and now we've suddenly got to deal with this weight gain that seems to come out of nowhere. So today, that is what we're going to do. Now, I won't try and pretend that in any way, form, or fashion that I can relate, as the stages of a male's life are very, very, very different. But I'm going to do my best to just bring you the science, bring you the facts, tell you what we currently know, and hopefully allow you to get a better understanding of it and kind of what we're dealing with. So what is it that is meant by menopause? What exactly is happening within the body? So essentially, one of the first things that's occurring is that the reproductive capacity, the reproductive function of the ovaries begins to decline. And the ovaries are what releases the eggs that can be fertilized in order to give birth and have a child and that sort of thing. So as the ovaries begin to shut down, eggs are no longer being released, the female period begins to cease and stops completely, and we get a decrease in three major hormones, and that is progesterone, estrogen, and testosterone. Now, as I've already alluded to, there's a lot of symptoms that can occur as this reproductive function goes down. But just to give you an overview of them again, some of the main ones are hot flashes, mood changes, disrupted sleep patterns, and the weight gain. None of which sounds any fun whatsoever. Now, worse yet, the weight gain seems to occur despite no changes in your dietary patterns. You're still eating exactly the same amount of food, you're still getting the same amount of activity, but you still end up gaining weight. So what the hell? What the heck is going on here? Unfortunately, there's still a lot that we really don't know, but what we can say is that it is likely a multifactorial, so there's a number of things that are going on, and it's also a very complex process. So just like everything else that I talk about, it's very individualized, and each person, each woman is going to have a different experience and a different process that they end up going through. So today, what I'm really going to try and do is just to give you that science, to give you what we do know and what it is that we've kind of figured out and what we're dealing with at this point in time. Now, to go back to those three hormones that I talked about previously, so the progesterone, the estrogen, and the testosterone, all three of those hormones play a very important role in maintaining muscle mass, okay? So we see a decline in those, and what ends up happening is we also see a decline in muscle mass. Now, the really interesting thing is that your body weight through this entire process could also stay exactly the same, but what ends up happening is you get a decrease in muscle mass and you actually get an increase in fat mass. So you've just basically replaced the muscle with fat because you've had this decline in these three hormones. Now, as I said before, oftentimes it feels like nothing has changed in your life. Your activity patterns have stayed the same, your dietary patterns have stayed the same, but your body is suddenly burning less calories, so your calorie output is a lot lower because you have more fat mass versus muscle mass. And so if you're still eating the same amount of calories and that sort of thing, and the calories that are going in are now greater than the calories that you're burning, well, that is going to lead to weight gain. All right, on to the next problem. So what can sometimes happen is that as we add this fat mass, so as the muscle mass goes down and we start to add this fat mass, the fat that you do add actually will start to kind of collect and make its way around your organs. So it'll be found around your liver, your intestine, your heart, that sort of thing. And that forms a layer of fat that we call visceral fat. So visceral is kind of inside, right? It's in and around our organs, whereas subcutaneous fat is the fat that is found on the surface of our body. So kind of that outer layer of fat. Okay. Now, a problem with visceral fat is that it acts a little bit differently than our subcutaneous fat. Visceral fat actually, again, is more metabolically active, but what it's doing is it's producing more hormones and chemicals, and being in close proximity to your organs, it can release those hormones and chemicals to the organs, and they can be potentially damaging. And this can lead to things like chronic diseases such as diabetes, hypertension, high cholesterol levels, various things like that. So that visceral fat is a bit of a problem. So far, not so good. But we got a few more things to go through, and then I'll give you a couple of tips here. Now let's talk about hot flashes, all right? Have you ever had a hot flash? Have you ever woken up in the night and the sheets have been soaked and your sleep has been disrupted and now you're rushing to the window even though it's -40 out to let a cool breeze in? Well, those hot flashes that often will disrupt a woman's sleep can ultimately disrupt those sleep patterns. And what we know is that disrupted sleep patterns when you're not sleeping as well are a huge risk factor for weight gain. Now, that in itself has a bunch of complexities around it, but what we know is that if you're tired, you tend not to make the wisest or smartest choices throughout the day. Your brain is tired. It wants dopamine, right? You're much more likely to reach for that chocolate bar or that can of Coke or something that's going to give you a kick of energy and make you feel a little bit better when you're kind of mundanely sitting in front of that computer and struggling to stay awake. So definitely disrupted sleep pattern can likely lead to a number of factors, but can definitely lead to you gaining weight. Now, what about the mood changes? Mood changes certainly lead to a number of emotions and feelings and that sort of thing that are generally unwanted. And some of us, including myself, have learned that when we have unwanted or negative emotions and feelings, food can be a way to help soothe those, to help take those away. Sure, it may lead to some negative feelings afterwards, but in the moment, food can be that savior to make you feel a little bit better. And so if suddenly you're having more mood changes, experience more emotions and feelings, and that is certainly something maybe you've learned or you start to learn as you're going through menopause, suddenly you might be doing more emotional eating. You might be having and reaching for those comfort foods, those things to make you feel better. And ultimately, emotional eating tends to be more mindless. We may binge. We definitely go for the higher calorie options. And again, more calories going in can cause the weight to go up. All right, just a couple of more points here that I want to get through, so just hang tight. The next thing that we're looking at is that low level of estrogen can sometimes lead to bone loss. This is why it's important for females to have calcium, vitamin D, keep doing resistance exercises, because you want to keep that bone mass up to prevent conditions such as osteoporosis or osteoarthritis, right? And in particular, with osteoarthritis, if suddenly you start to develop that, suddenly you are going to have sore joints and are going to be less willing and less wanting to do activity, or the activities that you usually do might be more challenging. Now, for kind of an interesting point around that low estrogen level, what the literature has also shown is that low levels of estrogen may actually increase your appetite. So you might just be hungrier and craving more foods as your estrogen levels go down. Very interesting. And what we know is that as estrogen levels go down, the hormones that suppress our appetite, so keep our appetite down and keep it down regulated, also go down with those estrogen levels. And so if nothing is there to suppress our appetite, again, that hunger level is going to go up, that appetite, that craving for food will go up with it, and you're more likely to eat and consume more calories. So now you might be thinking, especially for those last points, well, if the problem is low hormones, I know you can get estrogen hormones and stuff like that you can take from the outside, or birth control or that sort of thing. Why don't we just supplement with hormones? Why don't we just bring the hormone levels back up and provide where the deficiency is going on in the body, and we should just be able to correct all of these problems and issues? Well, I wish it was that easy. Unfortunately, these hormones often come with their own risks and challenges that can include things like increased risk of strokes, heart attacks. They can also lead to things like breast cancer, depending on the type of cancer and if it's hormonally driven. So these hormones just aren't they are decreasing in the body, but just adding them back in doesn't just fix the problem and may actually lead to more worrisome and harmful problems for you overall. So that's pretty much the main points of what we currently know about the process. Now, a lot of complexities there. There's a lot going on, and I know it can definitely seem a little bit disheartening, but the good news is that there is stuff that we can do. There is things that you can do to help manage that overall. And a lot of it is going back to the basics, a lot of the things that I often talk to my patients about. So the first one that I always recommend, activity. Particular resistance exercises. So resistance exercise are anything where you're basically flexing and working the muscles. So lifting weights, you can do resistance exercise in the pool, that sort of thing. Those exercises are fantastic for not only maintaining muscle mass, but it also helps to maintain your bones as well. And I highly, highly recommend that you start this before menopause happens, when those estrogen levels are a little bit more elevated, to help kind of build you a base so that you're better prepared when those changes do occur. Because no matter what, there's probably going to be some degree of loss overall, and there's just nothing you can do about that. That is just part of the hormonal processes that your body is going through. Or decrease your appetite, so there's less overeating, over-consuming, and that sort of thing. And then, of course, looking at smaller meals throughout the day and ensuring you're getting enough calories on a day-to-day basis. All those things are very, very important and can certainly help to curb and making sure that your dietary patterns are on the right track. So in terms of lifestyle, that's pretty much it. Dietary patterns, activity levels, of course, working on the mental health component of things. You know, if you're having lots of mood changes or emotional things are kind of coming up and stuff like that. So talking with a therapist, working through some of those challenges and stuff like that, certainly something that we can definitely support you with at Healthcare Evolution. But also if you're having more severe symptoms, so your hot flashes are, you're not getting any sleep whatsoever, lots of things are going on, then definitely following up with your family doctor to have a bit of a discussion, and it might warrant things like hormone therapies. Now again, it's not going to be for everybody. We really got to look at the benefits versus the risks and see if you do qualify, and if the benefits that may be provided to you do outweigh those potential risks that I suggested earlier, then hormone therapy might be an option. As well, there are other things that we can look at to help you to manage the symptoms of menopause. Now, I know the above, all easier said than done. And sure, that weight gain still might occur even if you do make all those changes. And that's okay. That's a part of being human. This is a biological process that is entirely out of your control. It is going to happen whether you want it to or not. Some women are going to get it worse than others. Some are going to be okay and not too bad. It's going to vary person to person, just like everything. It's very, very individualized. But what we know is the weight isn't the end all be all. And if you're focusing on those healthy behaviors, getting more activity in, watching your dietary patterns, well, those things are going to do things for you tenfold versus what any hormonal treatments and stuff are going to do for you overall. They are going to improve your health regardless of what is happening on the scale, because the scale doesn't really matter. So everyone, I hope that answered some of your questions. As I said, this is a question that I often get, and I do enjoy explaining it and kind of going it over with my female patients because, yeah, it's definitely a stressful time. It definitely can be a bit concerning, but there is things that you can do to manage it. And like I said, it is something that can be worked through and can be managed, but it's also just a normal part of life. So if you need some additional support, please feel free to reach out, let me know. Happy to answer any questions that you might have. And of course, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss another video. And if there's more questions that come up or something that's a hot topic, or maybe something that I didn't cover, something that, again, I'm not going to say that I'm an expert in this area by any means, and I'm also a male, so there's lots of things that I don't know and I might not be experiencing. So if there is something crucial that I missed, let me know. I would happily look into it and create another video and to provide you guys with the most robust and best evidence that's possible so that you can have a better understanding and hopefully a better idea of how you can mitigate and manage it. All right? Until next time, guys, it's been a pleasure, and we'll chat to you soon.